In 1894, a Pennsylvania Amish builder named Jonas Baer attached a strip of galvanized steel beneath the edge of his barn roof. He was not attempting to collect rainwater. What he wanted to capture was something electric companies would not even identify until 40 years later. The entire device cost close to 50 cents in materials. Today, a modern version of the same arrangement sells for roughly $50 in hardware stores, and under the right conditions, it can create more usable energy per square foot than a $30,000 solar installation mounted directly above it. The Department of Energy had knowledge of the principle as early as 1967. Nikola Tesla wrote about similar concepts in private notebooks during 1901. Yet, if someone walked into a solar showroom in America and asked about collecting energy from rain, the reaction would likely be disbelief. The entire renewable sector, now worth $400 billion, has been built around one assumption: that sunlight is the only resource falling from the sky worth harvesting. The Amish never agreed with that idea. For more than a century, they quietly continued working with rain gutters in ways modern engineers are only beginning to rediscover. Researchers from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Singa University, and several independent laboratories are now revisiting the same question: why was this concept ignored for so long? The explanation traces back to a forgotten patent from 1894, a Chinese experiment from 2018 that produced astonishing numbers, and Amish communities in Lancaster County that have spent 130 years refining the method. Most people misunderstand the Amish completely. Popular culture portrays them as frozen in another era, refusing all technology and living only by candlelight. That image is inaccurate. The Amish do not automatically reject technology. They study it carefully. Church elders judge every tool and system by one standard. Does it increase dependence on the outside world or reduce it? If a technology creates greater dependence, it is rejected. If it strengthens self-sufficiency, it is often adopted in highly unconventional ways. That is why Amish farms can include diesel generators, compressed air systems powering tools, propane refrigerators, and carefully controlled off-grid electrical networks. When Jonas Baer and others in Lancaster County began experimenting with rainwater systems during the late 1800s, they were thinking beyond drinking water. They were also thinking about energy. Rain contains enormous kinetic and electrical potential. A single thunderstorm can release more energy than a small nuclear weapon. An average storm can dump thousands of gallons of water onto a roof surface. Every droplet falls through the atmosphere carrying electrical charge, generated by friction. Physicists have measured charges reaching several hundred volts per droplet. Without formal scientific training, Amish builders discovered that a fraction of this energy could be collected, using little more than metal gutters, copper wire, and a grounding rod. The setup appears almost too simple. Yet the scientific principle behind it has only gained serious attention within the last 15 years. When rain strikes conductive metal, every droplet transfers a tiny electric charge. Millions of droplets hitting galvanized steel can build an accumulated charge if the gutter is insulated properly and connected through copper leads into capacitors or battery storage. The process resembles lightning on a much smaller and more manageable scale. In 2018, researchers at the City University of Hong Kong published findings in the journal Nature that shocked many in the energy field. They created a compact device using a metal plate with a specialized surface coating. According to their experiment, a single raindrop could generate up to 140 volts of electricity. One droplet. The researchers estimated that a scaled-up rain collection system might deliver thousands of times more power per unit area than conventional solar panels under rainy or heavily overcast conditions. The study spread rapidly through academic communities before fading from mainstream attention almost as quickly. Large energy corporations showed little interest in funding further development. No major commercial rollout followed. No broad government initiative appeared. Meanwhile, Amish communities in Lancaster County continued using their own systems as they had for generations. The stored charge powered small lights, water pumps, and electric fence systems without relying on the public grid. The rain gutter system was never intended to operate central air conditioning or electric kitchen appliances. It was never designed to charge a Tesla vehicle. Its value lies somewhere more practical. It provides a dependable baseline source of electricity during conditions where solar systems perform poorly. Solar panels stop producing energy at night. Output drops under heavy cloud cover. Winter reduces daylight hours. Storms interfere with production precisely when power outages become most likely. Rain-based systems operate in the opposite environment. Their strongest output arrives during storms, heavy rainfall, and severe weather events that can disable power lines for days. This is why some Amish communities combine multiple independent systems together. Solar panels provide daytime generation. Rain capture systems handle storm conditions and continuous trickle charging. Wood stoves supply heat. Propane handles refrigeration. Diesel generators remain available for backup. Every system compensates for the weaknesses of another. The result is not a single technology. It is a layered structure designed for independence. Rain also offers another advantage. Unlike sunlight, water itself can be stored after collection. Cisterns hold rainfall that later becomes potential energy for gravity-fed plumbing, hydraulic ram systems, and small hydro mechanisms Amish builders have assembled from scrap metal for generations. The electrical charge collected from gutters is directed into banks of lead-acid batteries, often the same varieties used in golf carts and obtained through surplus dealers or neighboring communities. The entire arrangement can recover its cost within months and usually requires very little maintenance. So why is this approach largely unknown? Why are rain gutter generators absent from renewable energy magazines and hardware store displays? The explanation, according to supporters of the idea, has less to do with technical failure and more to do with profit structures surrounding modern energy systems. The solar market today operates heavily through financing. Residential installations in the United States often cost between $25,000 and $35,000. Most homeowners do not pay cash up front. Instead, they sign loans, leases, or long-term agreements lasting 20 years with companies that maintain ownership of the equipment. Under those arrangements, homeowners may reduce utility dependence but remain financially tied to another provider. A $50 rain gutter setup assembled from hardware store parts requires no financing contract, no inspections, no permits, and no ongoing monthly fees. For major commercial energy industries, that type of system offers little opportunity for profit. Supporters argue this independence is exactly why Amish communities adopted the technology and why it remained largely ignored outside those circles. The construction of a traditional Amish rain energy system revolves around three major components. The first is the collection surface itself, the gutter. Amish builders favor galvanized steel instead of aluminum for a very specific reason. Galvanized steel remains the preferred material because it carries a higher work function. That means electron transfer from charged raindrops happens more effectively. Aluminum can still function, but its performance reaches only around 60% of steel. Copper performs even better, though its cost is far higher and theft becomes a serious issue. For that reason, the standard Amish arrangement relies on 16-gauge galvanized steel gutters mounted with rubber or plastic isolators. These separators prevent electrical charge from leaking into the structure of the building itself. The gutter must remain electrically separated from everything except the lead wire connected to the storage assembly. This is where most people fail when attempting to duplicate the design. Many attach gutters directly onto wooden fascia boards using metal screws. Once that happens, the electrical charge disperses into the wood and eventually into the building grounding system before any energy can be stored. Amish builders developed precise isolation methods to prevent that loss. Some communities still rely on ceramic standoffs. Others now use modern PVC isolators. Both approaches keep the gutter functioning as a floating electrical surface. The second stage involves the lead wire and capacitor assembly. A wire extends from the gutter into a compact capacitor bank that smooths the uneven pulses generated by individual raindrops. Without this component, strong rainfall can create dangerous voltage spikes capable of destroying connected batteries. The capacitors absorb sudden surges and release energy in a steadier current flow. Modern versions often use supercapacitors. These did not exist in 1894, but some Amish communities adopted them because they can operate for decades with almost no maintenance. The third section is the storage and inversion stage. Buffered electrical current flows into a battery bank, usually deep cycle lead acid batteries. From there, a compact inverter converts stored DC electricity into AC power suitable for lights, fans, pumps, and smaller household devices. A complete setup, including batteries and inverter, can be assembled for less than $500. The gutter, wiring, and isolation hardware alone usually cost well under $50. This same arrangement has quietly supplied electricity to Amish workshops, barns, and homes for more than 100 years. But the rain gutter system represents only one element inside a much larger philosophy of energy, independence developed over generations. That philosophy has recently drawn attention from unexpected groups. In 2021, researchers from the Rocky Mountain Institute spent 6 months studying Amish communities throughout Ohio and Pennsylvania. Their published report concluded that the average Amish household consumes roughly 1/8 the energy used by the average American household while maintaining comparable standards of food security, comfort, and physical well-being. 1/8. Not because Amish families live in hardship, not because they simply do without. Their advantage comes from designing every system around efficiency first and convenience second. Their refrigeration depends on propane absorption cycles originally invented during the 1850s, systems that require almost no electricity. Their lighting relies on highly efficient LED units powered by their own generation methods. Heating systems use wood stoves combined with thermal mass storage. Large stone or brick chambers absorb heat from a single morning fire and slowly release warmth across the rest of the day. Hot water systems use solar thermal collectors for heating water. These systems operate far more efficiently than photovoltaic solar panels. Yet mainstream solar companies rarely market them because the systems are inexpensive, simple, and extremely durable. The Amish do not reject modern technology. They reject waste. By doing so, they created a decentralized, resilient, low-cost energy model that makes the typical American home appear unnecessarily complicated. The implications are beginning to attract wider attention. Survivalists, off-grid homesteaders, climate resilience researchers, and even military planners have started examining Amish energy systems as possible examples of future post-grid living. The Pentagon funded research into microgrid resilience that specifically referenced Amish communities as examples of distributed energy generation capable of surviving disasters that disable centralized infrastructure. After Hurricane Sandy in 2012, millions across New Jersey and New York lost electricity for weeks. Amish communities in Pennsylvania, only a few hundred miles away, experienced almost no disruption in terms of energy. Their lighting remained active. Water systems continued operating. Refrigeration stayed functional. Workshops never stopped running because those communities had never relied on the public grid in the first place. A similar pattern appeared after Hurricane Helen in 2024, when large sections of North Carolina remained without electricity for more than a month. Amish and Mennonite communities inside those affected regions continued functioning normally. Many spent that month helping non-Amish neighbors establish emergency power and water systems based on the same principles they had practiced for generations. This, according to supporters, represents true resilience. Not a backup generator that exhausts fuel supplies after 3 days, not solar panels that stop functioning beneath dark skies, not a battery bank drained within 12 hours. Instead, a layered and redundant low-cost structure of independent energy generation that operates without dependence beyond the property line. But the rain gutter arrangement is only the beginning. Amish communities have also developed numerous small-scale energy capture techniques based on principles mainstream science either ignored or never fully explored. One example is the wind ribbon. This system uses a long strip of metallized fabric stretched between two poles. As the material moves in light wind, piezoelectric effects generate electricity, producing usable power from breezes too weak for traditional turbines. Another example is the thermal differential pipe. A copper tube sits partly underground and partly exposed to open air. The temperature difference between soil and atmosphere creates a continuous trickle of electricity, 24 hours a day throughout every season. There is also the dew collector. This passive setup condenses water from early morning humidity onto a charged surface, capturing both the collected moisture and electrical charge produced during condensation. None of these systems alone can operate a modern American household, but together, layered and operating continuously, they provide enough baseline electricity for lighting, communication equipment, water pumping, and food preservation. And they do it without fuel, permits, maintenance contracts, inspections, utility bills, or payments to solar financing firms for the remainder of a person's life. Once someone understands these systems, ordinary weather begins to look different. Every rainfall, every wind gust, every temperature shift between day and night becomes visible as potential energy surrounding a home. And with roughly $50 in materials and a single weekend of labor, that energy could theoretically be captured. This knowledge has remained inside Amish communities for more than 100 years. Not because they possess secret information, though many maintain extensive practical libraries outsiders rarely see, and not simply because they are gifted engineers, though many clearly are. The foundation came from one decision made generations ago. They concluded that dependence on outside systems represented weakness. Every household, in their view, should possess the ability to produce its own essentials: energy, water, food, heat, and shelter. The rain gutter became the clearest symbol of that philosophy. A strip of metal beneath a roof, properly connected and correctly understood, could replace a $30,000 solar installation in one critical role: maintaining resilience during storms, preserving independence during outages, and providing baseline electricity when other systems fail. The technology already exists, the designs already exist, the evidence exists across Amish farms throughout Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and many other states. The remaining question is whether people continue paying monthly utility bills that rise year after year, or decide instead to spend one weekend assembling a system Amish builders understood before most modern great-grandparents were even born. The choice was always available. The information was simply hidden, and now it is no longer hidden. The next time rain strikes a metal roof, the sound carries a different meaning. Water hitting steel becomes the sound of energy arriving directly onto private property, waiting to be collected. Amish communities have listened to that sound for 130 years. Perhaps the rest of society is finally beginning to hear it as well. Galvanized steel remains the preferred material because its work function allows electrons from charged rain droplets to transfer more efficiently. Aluminum can still function, but only at roughly 60% of the efficiency level. Copper performs even better than steel, though its high cost and constant risk of theft make it impractical for widespread use. For that reason, The standard Amish configuration relies on 16-gauge galvanized steel gutters installed with rubber or plastic isolation mounts. These separators stop electrical charge from leaking into the structural frame of the building. The gutter must remain electrically separated from everything except the lead wire connected to the storage assembly. This is where most people fail when attempting to duplicate the design. Many attach gutters directly onto wooden fascia boards using metal screws. Once that happens, the charge bleeds into the wood and the building grounding network before any usable electricity can be collected. Amish builders avoid this problem through specialized isolation methods. Some communities still rely on ceramic standoffs. Others have shifted toward modern PVC isolators. Both approaches preserve the gutter as a floating conductive surface. The second stage involves the lead wire and capacitor system. A wire runs from the gutter into a compact capacitor bank designed to smooth out the irregular electrical pulses created by falling rain droplets. Without this component, heavy rain can create dangerous voltage spikes capable of destroying connected batteries. Capacitors absorb those surges and release electricity in a steadier current flow. Modern systems sometimes incorporate supercapacitors, technology unavailable in 1894 but later adopted in certain Amish communities, because they can operate for decades with virtually no maintenance. The third section is the storage and inversion stage. Buffered electricity moves into battery banks, usually deep-cycle lead-acid units. From there, small inverters transform stored DC electricity into AC power suitable for lights, fans, pumps, and modest appliances. A complete system including batteries and inverter can be assembled for less than $500. The gutter, wiring, and isolation hardware alone generally cost far below $50. For more than 100 years, systems like these have quietly supplied energy to Amish workshops, barns, and smaller homes. But the gutter setup represents only one part of a much larger philosophy centered around energy independence. That philosophy is now attracting attention from unexpected groups. In 2021, researchers from the Rocky Mountain Institute spent 6 months living among and studying Amish communities across Ohio and Pennsylvania. Their published report concluded that the average Amish household consumes approximately 1/8 the energy used by the typical American household, while maintaining a comparable standard of living in food security, comfort, and physical health. A standard residential roof in the American Midwest with approximately 2,000 square foot of collection area can capture around 1,240 gallons of water for every inch of rainfall. Average yearly rainfall across Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania ranges between 38 and 44 inch annually. That means a typical roof in those states collects between 47,000 and 54,000 gallons of water every year. If that water passes through a hydraulic ram pump installed across a 6-foot drop, something achievable on almost any property with even slight grade variation, the system can generate steady water pressure between 40 and 60 pound per square inch, 24 hours a day, 365 days each year, without any electrical input. That pressure can then drive a compact Pelton wheel turbine, the same technology used in remote mountain cabins since the 1880s, producing between 200 and 400 watts of uninterrupted electrical output. At first glance, 200 watts may not sound impressive beside solar systems advertised at 10 or 15 kilowatt. But the math tells a different story. 200 watts operating continuously for 24 hours generates 4.8 kilowatt hours every day. That equals 144 kilowatt hours every month. An average American refrigerator uses approximately 40 kilowatt hours monthly. LED lighting across an entire house uses roughly 30. A standard well pump typically consumes around 20. The essential systems of an entire household can operate on the steady trickle of energy arriving freely from the sky if the correct equipment exists to capture it. That equipment, including the hydraulic ram pump, Pelton wheel, storage tank, and plumbing components, can be assembled for less than $1,500 when parts are sourced carefully. If recycled fittings and a surplus farm pressure tank are used, total cost can fall below $500. Compare that with a $30,000 grid-connected solar installation that shuts down precisely when conditions become most critical. Now comes the common counter-argument. Some people immediately think this system works only in locations with rainfall, hills, and large roofs. They assume it would fail in Arizona, Nevada, or California, where precipitation levels remain low. The Amish model described here works best in the eastern half of the United States, where rainfall is abundant and natural elevation changes are common. But Amish communities living in drier areas, including Westcliff, Colorado, parts of Montana, and northern New Mexico, adapted the same core principles to different environmental conditions. They expanded collection surfaces. Some added separate rain catchment structures away from the main barn roof. Larger storage systems were built to survive longer dry periods. In areas with limited rainfall, wind power became a supplemental source because the same mechanical principles involving water, displacement, pressure differences, and gravity feed could also be driven by windmills powering mechanical pumps. The central idea was never that rainwater hydraulics represented a universal solution everywhere. The deeper principle was that the Amish rejected the assumption that energy must always come from distant utilities, complicated grids, or expensive systems requiring 20-year repayment schedules. Instead, they started with a simpler question. What forms of energy already arrive freely on this land, and how can they be captured using tools local people can repair themselves? Every Amish community in North America answered that question with practical systems operating year after year and decade after decade without subsidies, grants, Silicon Valley engineers, or public campaigns. In 1996, a writer named Stephen Scott published a book titled Living Without Electricity, documenting Amish technological systems. He spent years interviewing families throughout Lancaster County and recording the dimensions and construction details behind their water systems, workshops, and dairy operations. The book remains in print today. It costs approximately $12. Most engineers studying renewable systems have never heard of it. Most solar installers have certainly never read it. Yet the information inside, combined with several weekends of careful labor, could allow many homeowners with sloped yards and decent roofs to significantly reduce dependence on the electrical grid for a fraction of the cost associated with modern renewable installations. Consider what happened after Hurricane Maria struck Puerto Rico in September of 2017. The electrical grid collapsed. Some regions remained without power for 11 months inside the United States of America. During that period, a small number of homesteaders living in the mountainous interior of the island continued operating normally because they had installed rainwater collection and gravity-fed pressure systems based on designs introduced by Amish builders from Pennsylvania a decade earlier. Their homes still had running water. Small hydroelectric systems powered refrigeration. Daily life continued functioning. Nearby residents waited in lines lasting 4 hours for bottled water distributed from FEMA trucks. Meanwhile, those homesteaders opened faucets and watched water flow because rainfall collected in October became pipe pressure in November. Small Pelton wheels inside their basements kept 12-volt battery banks charged enough to operate chest freezers filled with food. This is not theory. It has been documented, photographed, and discussed in publications such as Mother Earth News and Backwoods Home magazine. Yet mainstream discussions about resilience, sustainability, and energy independence rarely mention it. Why? According to supporters of these systems, the reason is simple. No large industry profits from them. No lobbyists in Washington campaign for hydraulic ram pumps. No publicly traded corporation depends on homeowners installing gravity-fed water systems. No bank sells 30-year financing packages at 7% interest for this technology. In the most direct sense possible, the Amish approach generates almost no profit for anyone except the homeowner who builds it. And that, supporters argue, is exactly why most people never hear about it. If this changed the way you think about the rain hitting your roof, start by looking at your own gutters. Think about how much water and energy reached that metal over the last year and ask yourself where all of it went. Then decide whether you want to keep watching it disappear down the drain or finally begin capturing a small part of it for yourself. Please leave your thoughts about this content in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.